Hey everyone. Good to see you guys. Starting to jump on now. I'm just going to share this onto Facebook. Then we're going to do our next Q&A show. Answer all the questions we didn't get to last week. Okay, just going to set this up. Okay, cool. Looks like we are live on there. Great. So this week we are going to finish off all the questions we didn't get to last week. Last week was awesome. You guys had so many cool questions that we want to make sure we cover all the ones that we missed. So give us a couple of minutes here. We'll get set up. Dr. Bart will come on and then we will get to your questions. Awesome. So as you guys go, as you jump on here, if you do have any questions tonight, we are going to take some more questions. So I've still got some from last week, but if you do have new questions, if you can start putting them in the chat, we will be able to get to those ones too. Oh, no, actually, sorry. That doesn't actually, yeah. Close. Okay. Dr. Bart in the house. Hello.
Good evening to you, Karen.
How are you? I'm just setting us up on Facebook here so that we can get going.
Sweet. So another exciting show. And again, this is one of those shows where I think in this short period of time, we can give the most, which is awesome. Because we'll cover so many topics once again. And again, I got a bunch of the questions. Obviously, I forwarded them to you. So thank you, everyone, for sending us your questions. And of course, if you have questions tonight or you're thinking of them as we're talking, just put them in the chat. So if you're on Facebook, you can come out, put them on Facebook, and they will forward them over to Karen, or Karen will be able to see them from there. Or if you're here with us on Zoom, of course, send us right into chat. And again, even if you are, if you're watching this on a recording and you have a question, you can forward that question to us, and we will find one way or another to get that answered for you and get it back to you. All right, Karen. So you got us dialed in over there?
We do. So let's dive in.
Sweet, let's do it.
All right, so welcome back everyone to another episode of the Health Made Simple show. Before we dive in, I want to intro, as always, our host, Dr. Bart Precourt, who has been a healthcare provider for over 20 years, practicing a range of modalities, including chiropractic, acupuncture, kinesiology, nutrition, and supplementation, as well as functional testing out at his clinic, Balance Health Studio in Seagrove Beach, Florida. He's also the founder of the Health Edge program, which is a virtual health program for entrepreneurs and executives wanting to take their health to the next level. So he works with celebrities and athletes all around the world. And so tonight we have access to ask him anything we want. So this is the challenge to you guys. See if we can stump him. Send in your questions. No, write in your questions, get some advice. Nothing's off the table. We're happy to answer anything, right, Dr. Bart?
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, when you said it that way, this is like, I guess I could get stumped on air right now, couldn't I? Like, because we'll answer whatever that way. So again, if you guys are just joining us now, if you have questions on Facebook, you can send the questions there. Or if you're here with us on Zoom, go ahead and send us via chat And again, thanks for joining us. And I appreciate you guys joining us every week. It keeps on like having more and more impact and keep growing. We came back with another Q&A because one reason, because we didn't get to all the questions last week. And we didn't want to, we try to do our best to keep within a good time frame so we can just kind of respect everyone's time. But we didn't get to all the questions. And then we got a bunch of questions after the show. So we wanted to come back tonight and answer them. They're awesome questions. And, those of you that are following me during the day, like that I do I do my live Facebooks every day. Very similar to that, where these are the questions that I get every day in clinic. So if you have them, trust me, there's other people out there that have those same questions. So I'm more than happy to do my best in these abbreviated answers to give you whatever I got.
Awesome. I love it. I think that's such a good point. If you've got a question, it's more than likely that somebody else has that question too. Definitely not alone in your questions. So should we dive into the first one?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's dive in.
Okay, cool. Dr. Bart, what is the fastest way to lose weight?
Okay, I think we touch on this last time, but we'll touch on it again. That is a topic that comes up nonstop and is weight loss, and it's perfectly okay. If we can get rid of some excess poundage that doesn't belong in our body, that's awesome, because that means we're leveling up our health. And I'll give you my two fastest ways, Karen. There's going to be two things that we're going to involve here. And you do these, I promise you're going to lose weight. Number one is you're going to lower your overall net carbohydrates. So the net carbohydrates it's a derivative of when you look at a package and it says, say you look at a banana and it says it's 35 carbohydrates, and then you subtract fiber. So if a banana has 4 grams of fiber, you subtract 4 from the 35 and you have a net of 31 grams. So number one you're going to do is get your net grams of carbohydrates on a daily basis under 70 grams every single day. And that's going to be an eye opener for a lot of you. So that means that things like bread and gluten and all that stuff is a bye-bye, because 2 slices of bread will have about 45 grams. But when we eat like a whole bucket of spinach, it'll have like 4 grams, which is awesome. Eggs have 0 grams. So there's a huge God's garden available plate for you. So number one is this: if you want to lose weight, do these 2 things. 30 days later, you will be lighter, not by starvation diet, just because you have a better lifestyle. Number one, reduce your carbohydrates, get your net carbohydrate grams under 70 per day. And the second is use some level of a fasting schedule. And that gives a timeout for the gut, and it downregulates insulin. So so ideally, if you're female, get comfortable between 14 and 16 hours a day fasting. And if you're male, try to push that a little bit more, more of a 16 to 18 hours where in practice. So you want to kind of build it up a little bit here. And again, the goal there is that when you're doing that, you're not snacking either. It's just a simple formula like this. If you eat, blood sugar goes up. And if blood sugar goes up, insulin is released. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. So if you want to lose weight, lose fat, we got to make sure that insulin's not being released. So the less often you eat, the less fat you gain. It's really that simple. I know so many years we were told like eat 6 meals a day, it revs up your metabolism. No. The less often you eat, I'm not saying less food, but less often you eat. So lower your carbs, increase your fasting schedule, you lose weight fast.
Love it. Awesome. All right. Well, now that we're talking about fasting, Fiddler here on Zoom says, what does the effect of chewing gum during intermittent fasting have?
So if your gum is, and really what your gum is giving you an artificial source of sugar, and typically anything you bring in, even if it's not sugar itself, is going to trigger your body to increase your blood sugars. Remember, we're triggered as well. As crazy as it sounds, you can get triggered by smell. So we want to be really mindful. If we're using gum, and most likely you're using it because it's got a little taste or something in there, typically I'll say no. We want to develop that strong, emotional fitness, that strong mental discipline to say, I just don't need it. And the beauty is when it comes to the carbohydrates, it takes about 2 to 3 days of lowering them, and then it gets easy breezy after that.
Okay. Even so, it doesn't matter what type of gum. Artificial sweetener in gum. What about that?
the most part, gum has some of the worst crap in it, period. So I try to just leave that out because there's so much just garbage. It's not a food. It's like some rubbery stuff that we put in our face and we chomp on it until it runs out of flavor. And then we like get another one and we stick it under a chair or something. So, and then it never degrades. So remember that, right? So you can stick a piece of gum under a chair and come back 3 years later, it's still there. So like, yeah, let's, it's not awesome. Yeah.
Got it. All right. We got another question here. What can I put onto from Dottie? What can I put onto chapped lips that isn't a sunscreen full of chemicals?
Yeah. So I'll give you the one we use in our house, and it's what's it called? It's USF. It's an ointment. So it's a it's a fatty acid ointment, and it comes from it's basically pork fat. Okay. Extremely healthful, therapeutic to your lips, massively therapeutic. If you have access to those Standard Process website, it's standardprocess.com. You can go there, and it's USF ointment. It's absolutely amazing for anything chafed, anything chapped, anything like that. Real safe, real effective. Your dogs will try to lick it off whatever body part it's on. So just be mindful. It's again, super helpful, super safe, super helpful. And it's essentially a fatty acid base. And that's what's really good about it.
Okay. Love it. Okay. Next one. I am a college student. I listen to your show and always want the supplements that you talk about. However, the cost isn't always accessible. How do we make health affordable?
Awesome. And I love this question because this is, a lot of people ask me that question all the time. And I think we should ask it more often. Because listen, sometimes supplementation costs a lot of money. So the first thing is get clean. Like even if you're eating out of a cafeteria, even if it's not organic all the time, you always have an option. At least most of the time you'll have an option. Can I get my greens in a protein? So allow yourself to start there. But if you were going to supplement, so if you were really going to say you're on a budget and you want to have the greatest impact as a college student specifically, the number one thing I'm going to tell you to get is go to the grocery store and buy yourself some apple cider vinegar.
Okay.
Old jar costs you, I think it's like $6 or $7, and do about a teaspoon a day. Gut health in college is where it begins to get really destroyed. So if you do about a teaspoon or say a day, you can blend it up, that would be massive for you. And especially if it'll help you with candida, it'll help you with yeast, it'll help you with all kind of any pH imbalances, and especially with digestive health. So I would start there, and I'd get gluten out of your life. And if you just did that, you'd be like light years ahead most. Now, listen, that also means that, and I know in college for me, it was all about how much pizza could I possibly consume. So that's where first thing is the apple cider vinegar. If you wanted just one supplement, it would be Catalin. Catalin was the first supplement made in the United States as a whole food supplement. It was made back in 1929. It was actually formulated prior to that, I think about 1927, 1925. And it was designed to have everything in the kitchen sink. So you get minerals in there, and you also get vitamins. And if you read the ingredients, there's also things like bovine liver and desiccated adrenal glands. So that one supplement, Catalin, if you want a supplement. If diet, of course, get clean, get your greens, get your animal proteins, get good amount of healthy fats, and get apple cider vinegar.
Love it. Nice and simple. Easy for any college student can do that, right? And on Zoom here, somebody's asked, can apple cider vinegar be used for dogs too?
Yeah, it can. Interestingly enough, I haven't had much success with it though, in terms of getting them to take it, because it has a vinegary smell to it. So we've done everything from trying to use apple cider vinegar to help, reduce the amount of fleas that the dogs have. Again, if the dog has an imbalanced diet, fleas are going to like the dog. So apple cider vinegar helps balance the pH of the body, which is fantastic. So if you can get your dogs to somehow consume apple cider vinegar, fantastic. I haven't had much luck with it though. They'll walk up to the plate and then they'll walk away, or we'll put it in the water and they just don't drink it.
Yeah, I bet. I can't imagine my dog being too keen on that. But well, since we're talking about dogs, we did have one other dog question. Is there such a thing as too many supplements for dogs? dogs. Here we give our 10-year-old Cocker Spaniel epidermal, musculoskeletal, Antonex, Boswellia, and now whole body support, as well as Psychox, soft chews for joints, Dynavite nutritional supplements. We've reduced their kibble by 20% and added carrot spinach puree daily, and liver or chicken every few days. So the real question there, though, is there such a thing as too many supplements for dogs? Obviously, that was quite a lot in there.
Well, first, I want to congratulate whoever that is for being willing to take such an effort for their animals, because they only have us. So I really want to give them a high five for willing to do that. And I don't know that there's too much, Karen, like it's going to be harmful for them. You mentioned a couple, I didn't know the products, but the ones that are SP, like standard process, I know that they're whole food. So literally, it's almost like, you're not going to make your dog sick. That much I know. So you have one there that I heard him mention called Boswellia. That is an herb. Boswellia is, it's herb. So I wouldn't go super high on that unless they're dealing with some inflammation. But that Boswellia herb, quite frankly, will do amazing wonders for arthritis stuff. That literally has celery root seed in it. It's incredible what it does. It has turmeric in it and celery root seed, which are great down regulators of inflammation. There's never going to be too much as long as you're using whole food. There could be some, I didn't hear them all, you said them quick, but you could be a little redundant, and, in terms of just, how much you're spending on your animal, or like, are you repeating? I didn't hear any. I heard dermal, I heard Antronex, which is for drainage. I heard the Boswellia, I heard whole body. And then I heard something for joints, which is probably
PHYCOX, soft chews.
Familiar with that one, so I don't know exactly what it is, but my guess, if it is a joint product, is probably leaning in the direction of some type of cartilage or collagen, which in that list right there you didn't have. So it really sounds you're making a really educated, like, awesome effort for your animal right there. And no, you will not pollute your dog or make your dog sick, as long as you're not being redundant and saying you're just giving them too much and you're wasting your money. But no, that sounds fantastic. Come to my house for a moment, and you'll be wondering whether or not there's too much going on. Yeah.
I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. All right, let's do the next one. Do you have any tips for suffering from vertigo?
Yeah. So I've fair amounts. One, we almost want to figure out when and how that vertigo is coming about. So I guess I'll throw, because I'm not having a direct conversation, we'll talk about that. Vertigo, for some people, think dizziness, and sometimes those are interchanged a little bit. If your vertigo is the type of vertigo that happens when you change positions, mostly from like being bent over, like say in a yoga posture, you bend over, then you come up quickly, and you get a little lightheaded, a little vertigo, a little dizziness, typically that's an adrenal issue. Your adrenal glands cannot keep up with the change of blood pressure. So when you're leaning over and your heart's closer to the ground, the circulation's going that way, it's easy on your adrenal glands. And then or easy on your heart, the moment you stand up, you increase pressure and stress on the heart. So your adrenal glands should work really fast. If you get dizzy or lightheaded for a moment, you come out of bed quickly. If you bend over and come up and you're getting lightheaded, that's a sign that your adrenal glands are not able to keep up right now. So that we need adrenal support for. Desiccated adrenal, Drenamine. Best herbs would be ashwagandha if you're having a little anxiousness with it. If not, I like things like Romagna. Romagna and licorice root are fantastic for healing the gland. Now, there's another type. You can have predictable vertigo from turning in a certain direction, but when you turn the other way, it doesn't happen. Now that is usually meaning that you have a crystal that is stuck in your ear. And this happens. So think of crystals right now, like these little floating bones. And when I tip my head this way, they float this way, and they always create balance. That's what we call the righting reflex. That's what a cat has. They always say cat always lands on his paws. That's the righting reflex. So the righting reflex in the cat's ears get it always to land on its paws. When we have a crystal stuck, when we tip, we kind of get dizzy or we get this vertigo. So we want to pause a moment. That is really easy to fix. If you go to your chiropractor, there's a quick maneuver that we do, and you can Google it online. I forget the name of it. I do it frequently, but that'll be something that the first thing I ask when they come in, they say, man, I have some vertigo. I try to figure out, is this an adrenal issue or is this a crystal issue? Very fixable. Both of them are very fixable. Sometimes they're inadvertently fixed. When you just get an adjustment, it frees that crystal up. The last thing I would tell you, that if you get that frequently and your crystals are getting stuck and you do have, you're getting, this is kind of side topic, but this is real. If you're getting a lot of wax in your ears, you got to get your carbohydrates and sugar down. That, again, there's a correlation between lots of wax and carbohydrate intake. So get that carbohydrates down, get the sugar out. It's just another inflammatory process taking place in the body. Then you'll see those crystals free up.
Wow. I didn't know that was another symptom of that, or that could cause wax in the ear. Okay, next question. Can you please educate me on nutrition response testing? How does that work?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, it's a great question. So nutrition response testing is this is an old school question. I'd love to know who asked this. Is a type of muscle testing. So, and I do muscle testing. So all muscle testing comes from applied kinesiology, and the father of applied kinesiology, his name is Dr. George Goodhart. And really what it is, it's fascinating work. It's awesome. Basically, your practitioner will use a muscle in your body, and it's not trying to see how strong you are, but it tests your muscles to get a neurological reflex on things that you're toxic to, on things that you're allergic to, and what nutrient deficiencies you may have. Now, what's really cool, so let's just say, for example, the practitioner's testing my arm, and they push on it, and then they put their fingers on my liver, and all of a sudden it goes weak. When my liver took in stimulus, it took the energy away from my arm. And this is the way that the body works. And all of a sudden it made it weak. Now I could probably rebound it, but that moment, that neurological stimulus tells me that, man, there's something going on in my liver. And if I add more input, it breaks down. Now, the cool thing is in NRT and there's many other, all muscle testing comes from applied kinesiology. And that was Dr. George Goodhart. So there's like a whole tree of different practitioners that kind of spun off of that. But then you can test, and you can literally start to give vitamins. You can try, like, one of the first things, if someone has a liver issue, the first thing I'll give you is vitamin B, see if you're vitamin B deficient, and boom, and all of a sudden it gets strong. There you go. You need vitamin B. So it's very accurate. There's an art to that practitioner there. That is the more skilled and the more accustomed they are to practicing it, the better it gets. For those of you that are watching, if you've been in my office, on my wall, there's all these little vials. It looks like a little mad scientist thing. And so there's probably on one wall, there's like 120 or so, 180 maybe bottles, and every vitamin you can think of, every vitamin, nutrient, herb, desiccated glandulars, all that stuff. And then on the other walls, all the other herbs. So I can test when, let's say your adrenal glands, and I can test the exact herb that would work good. Maybe it's for some people, I need to fix the gland, so I need desiccated adrenal. And some people, I just need to feed it, and therefore vitamin C will make it stronger. So it really pinpoints. So it's fantastic work. If that person out there, if they're seeing a nutrition response, practitioner, awesome for you. I know it's a little bit weird, and there's a fascination and a questioning that goes with it because you don't feel it as much. But just trust me, that schooling, that muscle testing has been techniques that have been passed down and retaught how to do for literally decades now. And it's fascinating work.
It's really is. It's super interesting. I haven't had with the nutrition, but even just the other muscle testing where you can tell that it's, my liver from my arm, or it just always blows me away because it's always spot on. It really is, right? It's awesome.
And you can go all the way. You can find out if it's emotional, physical, or chemical. Oh, yeah. So like you can test the muscle just by itself and just test and just see if it's strong or not. And then there's certain things you can do just to make the muscle stronger. And if that doesn't work, then you try nutrition. If that doesn't work, you tap into the emotions. So there's always a reason. If the body doesn't have power, there's always a reason behind it. It just doesn't give up one day.
Yeah. Love it. Awesome. Very cool. Okay. Next question. Any thoughts on mouth taping for mouth breathers? It has really helped my sleep levels, as mouth breathing supposedly keeps you in fight flight mode, influencing the depth of your sleep.
Yeah, so I'm glad that's helping for you, but I truly I almost want to go one step backwards and like dive a little deeper there and get to root cause of it. So mouth breathing is all about inflammation. There's usually some sinus thing going on. People have allergies and they've got too much congestion. They're not draining enough. And then you get used to the mouth breathing, but you can retrain yourself to breathe through the nose. So there's retraining that I would recommend that you do every night. Make sure that you lie there and do breathing only through the nose. But I would also simultaneously working on getting inflammation out of the body. So the nasal passage is very affected by when we have inflammation. I'll definitely get off dairy immediately. So I grew up as a mouth breather. And you can look at people and you can tell what it does. Like if they've been mouth breathing for a long time, it actually will start to curl their bottom lip, because we're talking about tens of thousands of breaths, and it literally starts to push the lip, and it'll make your lips look really full, like make it look like you have bigger lips. So it'll push the lip out, and it can actually change what your teeth are doing as well, if you've been doing it from a really young age. So you want to be real mindful of like, why are you mouth breathing? And make sure that you kind of open up everything. So, get to the inflammation. I'd encourage you to, if you're not already getting adjusted, get adjusted. You got to get your mid-thoracic region adjusted, get that vagus nerve woken up, make sure you get pressure off the diaphragm so you can breathe properly. So this is a breathing inflammation, and the taping of the mouth helps, but it's not the root cause.
Interesting. Oh, what about, now that we're talking about this, I breathe through my mouth, and I had a lot of orthodontic work as a kid. And they always said it was like because of that. Listen to the things that we get told and then we believe and don't change. Never. So that I kind of thought that was, part of it. What about, those kind of things?
Well, I tell you what, I was a mouth breather until I started yoga. And then learned how to feel what it was to breathe through the nose. Remember, when you breathe through the nose, you're waking the brain. You're bringing chi, outside chi, to the brain itself. And that then the chi goes from the brain down into the lung field. And that's where we get 50% of life force, this chi force from the outside. So when we bring it through that pathway, it has a whole nother effect on the human body. And I had no idea of that until I started yoga. And we would go through these breathing things. And it was fascinating to me, like how my body would just feel differently, how my brain would wake up, like my skin would tingle. So there's, we have to practice it though, because I think as whoever wrote that question, they said that, mouth breathing could be related to fight or flight. And it is, because to take a breath in through the nose and down deep into the belly, you've got to shift from that sympathetic dominance into a little bit of a parasympathetic activity so you can control the breath more. Otherwise, when we're in a nervous energy, we're breathing in and out through the mouth. But so we have to literally retrain how to do that.
Yeah. And I love though with that we're talking about retraining, because we often think that things are just the way it is, or we accept them, or we stuck with all these different things we say, right? And you can retrain your body to do so many things. No matter how long you've been doing stuff a certain way, there's always time to change and upgrade it, right?
It's so true. That's such a true statement. And I think we often don't give our the power of the body enough credit for what it can do, and I've had the blessing of, practicing for 24 years and seeing just amazing things, literally just amazing things that happen every day when given the opportunity, so it's, and that's just to your point, absolutely. We give up on the body way too early.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on to the next question. Should I get my breast implants out, Dr. Bart?
Wow, this is a big topic. Okay. Big all right. So big topic deserves a well laid out. This should be an entire show, Karen. All right, let's go this. And I say it's a big topic because I literally have seen, in this last year, I've seen more women in the last year than I have in my entire career have what we call explant surgeries. Now,
and same with celebrities, and people are talking about it a lot on social media. There's a lot of people talking about this right now.
Yes. And I don't know that we're talking about it enough in a healthy perspective. So, and I'll explain that. So the number one reason people are talking about it is because they're thinking, well, I have this foreign object in my body and it could be leaking and it could be, it's foreign. And there, people are starting to wake up. Maybe I shouldn't put stuff in my body that doesn't belong there. And listen, no guilt or shame whether you do or don't. Yet, as a practitioner, as a healthcare practitioner, listen, just getting an explant surgery doesn't make you healthier. When a smoker stops smoking, it doesn't make them healthier. They have to go do healthy things. They just stopped something that wasn't good for them. So now really the focus, the emphasis, and this is the conversation I've been having with my team a lot, and we're bringing in some thermography into our practice. We're bringing really a whole, I want to say, breast awareness. So I'm going to walk through a couple things. If you're thinking about explant surgery, I want you to think about, how do you get your breast healthier? And when I ask this question listen, I'm not a girl, right? I don't have female breasts. I have breasts, and this is for guys too, but we're for the most part talking about ladies, especially with explants. But when I ask my patients, hey, listen, how do you keep your breasts healthy? They think it's a trick question. There's no conversations about this. So let me go through a couple of things here, and then we'll talk about surgery. Well, I'll talk about surgery first. First, if you are going to have surgery, I don't care what kind of surgery. You have to have a pre-surgery plan and you have to have a post-surgery plan. And the pre-surgery plan is that you get your body absolutely clean. So my patients, I tell them, you have to do at least a 10-day cleanse prior to any surgery, because you're about to downregulate your liver massively. You're about to interrupt your circadian rhythm, and you're about to disrupt your hypothalamus gland that talks to all your hormones. So we want to get your bodies clean and get as much inflammation out of your body as can be. Milk thistle, turmeric, etc. Then afterwards, post-surgery, got to have another plan. Now we got to get all those chemicals and drugs out of your body. There's no free pass here. Milk thistle, again, that's going to clean out and repair the liver. Turmeric to downregulate inflammation. And typically I'll use something called SP Cleanse. And that's the same pills that I use on my cleanse program. And that will clean out the lymphatics, because when you have surgery, you're going to get stuff just flowing through your whole body. All right. So that's just pre and post surgery. Now let's talk breast health for a moment. All right. So if we're going to have our breast implants out, we also should have high awareness about what our breasts should feel like and what nutrients we should be getting regularly for breast health. Let's talk nutrients for a moment first. A lot of people really don't like, Karen, if I ask you, and I'm not putting you on the spot, do you know what is the most important nutrient for your breast?
100% no. No idea.
Yeah, and most don't. And the answer to that, real simply, is iodine.
Okay.
Iodine is probably the number one most important nutrient for breast health. Now, here's the challenge. Our country, at least here, and probably you guys too, is massively, massively deficient in iodine. And iodine will help us fight off cancers. So it inhibits that. So it's also massively important for our thyroid. And remember, what does the thyroid do? Part of its job is to clean blood. So we with all these, nutrient deficiencies, that's the number one place to start. Let's make sure that we are giving our breast tissue an opportunity. The second part is to understand what's going on with the breast tissue. Most lymph nodes are kind of bulbous. They're kind of like round, and they look like they're round. A lot of the breast tissue is not. They're more oval-like, and they're kind of flat, and they're just around the breast tissue. And so what happens is it's easier for them to get squished, especially when they're compressed with a bra. And we do that, from adolescence on up, right? So we compress them, we tighten things off. So now we change the lymph flow. And the lymph is really where things go to die. And that lymph needs things like iodine. So all of a sudden, we're really setting ourselves up for really, really poor breast health, because we have a system that should be highly vascular and things should be flushing and flowing nonstop, but we're doing just the opposite. We're not giving it the nutrients it needs to help move things along, and then we're squishing them. So that fundamentally is part of when I say we should have proper breast health, because just because you get your explants out, what about the tissue afterwards? So let's talk really about what it should feel like. We should all learn, like all the women or guys too, because guys have high levels of breast cancer. They don't have explant surgeries, but high levels of breast cancer. We should learn how to palpate the breast. And what we do, we just do it with the bases of our fingertips. We're not pokey. And we do it in circular. So you go circle, 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 all the way up to the areola, and you should be able to grab the areola and the nipple and pull out, and there should be nothing blocking it underneath. I know we're covering a lot in Zoom here, but this is so important. And I watched this over the last 24 years of my career, and I know that in the back of every woman's mind is breast health. And it boggles me that we don't have more education about how, and I don't mean breast awareness. Like, I'll be honest with you, when I see the breast awareness month, I want to headbutt somebody, because we do it every single year. We spend tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, and the awareness is poor awareness. It is weak awareness. All right, just got that off my chest. Anyways.
Yeah. You're not the only one who thinks like that. For sure. Yeah.
When you start to learn how to palpate your own chest and your breast, and you just learn the tissue, you don't know what's going on in there. Eventually, you're going to come across a little what I call lumpy, bumpy tissue, fibrotic tissue. And you're going to be told, if you went to your OBGYN or if you got yourself a mammogram, to tell you, well, as long as it's not cancerous. Well, no, that tissue is abnormal tissue. You wouldn't accept it anywhere else in your body. But just because it's in your breath and it's lumpy, bumpy, and clumpy, that is not okay. That's the beginning phases of that tissue starting to break down and turn into something else. So we want to be really aware of what's taking place with the breast, and therefore we can do things about it. Now, with that being said, if you get really aware with it, you can also do some cool things. If you have fibrotic breast tissue, most of you will know what I mean, but you got to feel around a little bit and do it on a regular basis. Caffeine typically got to go. Gluten got to go, because you will see you will feel the breast tissue change within 30 days, which is really cool. So now we're talking about getting rid of some bad guys. And this is even if you have an explant surgery, you still have to do this because the tissue has never been nurtured. So we've got getting rid of the caffeine, possibly getting rid of the gluten. Definitely. We just don't need it in our lives. Learning how to palpate the breath and know what we're feeling, adding a little bit of iodine into the diet, making sure that, so the next part is in the shower, doing a little bit of what I call sloughing. And all we do, so the best is that you do the exam, your little check every day in the shower, because it becomes how you're going to move tissue, how you're going to get things flushing through the lymph nodes. So arm up in the shower, hot water, flushing down the thing will increase the flow. And we're just going to do those little circles round and round, pushing everything toward the armpit and from the arm down toward the heart. And we just flush everything out. 30 days and you will change the health of the breast. But I'm not going to stop there. There are a couple oils that are very, very good for breast health, especially for the women out there. Listen, if you get breast tenderness around your cycle, it's not okay. Okay. That's a swelling. That's congestion in the breast. This is what I'm talking about. If you have too much caffeine and stuff like that, and then your cycle comes and you have all that tenderness, soreness, it's not okay. So there's a couple oils I like to use here, Karen, and they are, I love fish oils and everything for everyone, but these specifically are plant-based oils. My number one is evening primrose oil, and you don't need a lot of it. Usually I give you like one in the morning, one in the afternoon. And really what these oils are all what we call ALAs. And these ALAs are a little thinner and they can get into the tissue a little better. So usually what I'll do with my women, if they're like, I want breast health, I'll have them go through, I circulate 3 bottles, meaning I go through a bottle of evening primrose oil, and then I use black currant seed oil, which is fantastic, and then something called linen B6. Linen B6, really inexpensive. And they just go through a bottle, and they go back to the first bottle. And the reason I do that is it's hard to say which plant oil is going to work best for the individual. Unless you're muscle testing, you can find out pretty fast. By circulating them, you're giving your body an opportunity to get different types of oils. Linen B6 is really the pure source of flaxseed oil. And just, quick note, flaxseed oil oxidizes very easily. So we don't want it in an open jar. We don't want you would pour it out. You need it in capsule source. So that's really and that was a long story, but for explants, do I think people should have them out? I think in the event that you think you're at risk of something, you think they're leaking, you're having swollen lymph nodes, you're having constant pain, you're getting bacterial infections, I think you might need to consider these things. Prior to all that, you need to think about a pre-surgery plan, a post-surgery plan, and proper breast health.
And if somebody, in terms of making up those kind of plans, if somebody wanted to have a consultation with you, do they need to come to Seagrove Beach, work with people anywhere?
No, we can do it. We certainly can do it in Seagrove Beach, but we can do it anywhere. So we can do a virtual. And I probably should have said that to start with. That was a lot to digest right there. Um, yeah, absolutely. If anyone wants, we can call. We can do a virtual just like this. We do it all day long. We can do all our consults just like this. We can walk through those protocols on what to do pre, what to do post, what to look for, what you're physically feeling, how to map it out, and how to chart it. And a lot of those things too, when you do that, and especially if you have someone guiding the way, it just gives a little bit of peace of mind. And with those, situations, and that's really a lot of times what we need is a better peace of mind, because it gets a little scary. I know firsthand that if a woman first, finds something and they feel a bump, and it's the first time they felt that bump, that's a panic moment. But it might just be because it was their cycle, gluten, caffeine, all simultaneously, the wrong bra on or something like that, and it gets congested. So the answer is yes to that. We can do it from any place, anytime.
And Taryn on Facebook asks, when will you be adding the thermography to your practice?
Taryn, we are hoping to have it probably by like midsummer. We're just putting some into place, and we're really excited about doing it. So it's thermography, and it's just another great way to continuously observe what's taking place with any of the tissue in the body, and it allows us to see inflammation, isolations, areas of inflammation, and you do all these other things, and then you really have a good breast health situation going on, instead of just I'm going to do I'm going to do an exam when I hit 40. That's not a good strategy.
And what are the best sources of iodine? Seaweed?
Seaweed is fantastic for a regular dietary source. Like there's these little snacks out there. Oh man, I forget what they are. Anyways, they're basically like they're dried out seaweed, and you almost think they're like potato chips, but they're not, because they're like seaweed, and they're good snacks to have. And then I supplement. It's very easy to supplement. We use something called bromelain iodine, and I usually just start off with one in the morning. If you have a history of Hashimoto's, we got to go into that a little bit differently. We have to just monitor things. Doesn't mean you can't have it. You still need it. You just have to do it right. We just can't be doing it when your antibodies are spiked, but we can use it. But yeah, so it's a real easy supplement, and it's fantastic. So, and iodine does a lot more too. Like it can work with energy, electrolyte imbalances. It does a lot of stuff for us.
Okay, awesome. Well, since we're kind of on, I don't know, a little bit more controversial topics, maybe. What about Botox is our next question. What are your thoughts on getting Botox?
Botox, great. Well, I'll tell you my thoughts in just a moment. I'm gonna tell you a funny story. What I'm gonna do. So Botox. So what is Botox? It's a neurotoxin is what it is, and it came about probably about 5 decades ago. Like for surgical procedures, they would use it's botulism is what it is. It's a neurotoxin that would then make so you can't feel things and move things. Like it shut down your nervous system, like shut down the nerves around that area. So you can you cut open and stuff like that. So that's where it kind of came from. And then they started to use it in other scenarios. Well, anyway, so here's the funny story. So, in this area, man, Botox is popular. So I'm going to be real gentle about how I'm talking about this. So anyways, a couple of years back, so this would sound crazy. They have like Botox parties. They're like, they'd be like cocktail parties, but there'd be, a practitioner there or something like that passing out Botox, banging up people in their heads and, walking around. So I have no explanation for this, but anyways, I did it. So I got shots in my forehead and I don't know, cause everyone's like, yeah, you gotta like stuff. And I'm thinking this is character, right? That in my brain, I'm like all these wrinkles and these, facial expressions, this is character. So anyways, I get these shots and I couldn't move my face. Like it was the most bizarre feeling because I use a lot of expressions with my face. So I felt like I was lying to everyone I was talking to because I couldn't flinch. I couldn't do this right here. I would be like, to everything. Like I just felt like I was here the whole time. So it was the strangest feeling. I couldn't wait for it to wear off. And I just did a little itty bitty. I was a one and done for me, never happening again. Like it was the most weird, bizarre. Now, that being said, a lot of my clients use it regularly.
It's super popular. I like didn't like a lot of my friends get it. I'm always a little bit terrified that it's a neurotoxin, so I haven't tried it just from being too scared. But I mean, it does have some great results. Like it can people use it a lot.
Yeah. So Karen, my approach is going to be this, and this is the same conversation I have with my wife. She's done it every now and then. She's going to get mad at me. I said that she does it every now and then. She doesn't have like a regular schedule. A lot of people have a regular schedule, like it's every, 6 or 8 weeks. If you're going to choose to bring something into your body, choose to level up at the same time. Choose and know that you're going to help get the toxin out of your liver, and you're going to downregulate the inflammation. So in that same scenario, very much like when we talked about, if you're going to get yourself a vaccine, don't just be like, oh, I'm just going to put this vaccine in my body. I'm not going to do anything about it. It's a toxin. Like it is a poison for the human body. That's why we respond to it. But if you're going to choose to do that, let's pull some stuff out. Milk thistle, turmeric. It's a good 30-day program. Most of you guys are probably already on that anyways. So Botox, I'm kind of like this. The philosophical part of me, the healthcare provider part of me says, man, I would have a hard time defending its benefits.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I love the approach we've taken in that, hey, if you're going to do it, these are the things to do. Because there is, there's going to be some people who do want to. And so, hey, if you are going to, what are the things that you're going to do to add in?
Yeah. So, what's interesting. So it was probably a couple of years ago, I did a deep dive and I was trying to find the long-term studies on Botox, and I didn't find any. There
are none. Because it's been around for a while now, hasn't it?
Yeah. I just don't know if we have any long-term studies on it. I didn't find any. And so it doesn't mean anything bad or good about it, but I usually like to kind of like dig in and see if there's long-term studies. But like you said, just let's have a strategy, right? And, if you're going to put something in your body, give your body the respect and honor your body and have the pride in your own body that you're also going to help clear it out.
Yeah. Love it. Also love that no questions off the table, right? So guys, feel free to ask whatever you like. All right. We're going to go back to an easier one now.
Okay.
How many ounces of apple cider vinegar do you recommend? And should you be empty stomach or food in your stomach?
Do a teaspoon, mix it up with I really like the formula of like equal apple cider vinegar to water in terms of your blend. If you're hardcore, you can just, throw it down. Go do it on an empty stomach is my preference, because that way we're going to help balance that pH. So then when you go to eat, you then can be a better digester. So, literally a teaspoon a day would be a fantastic practice.
Love it. Okay, this is an interesting one. How dangerous do you think vaping is versus smoking? And then how about especially if you have arthritis?
All right. So what we can't do is compare one really bad thing to another really bad thing. Because all of a sudden we're going to make one of them look good, and we're not going to do that. So they're both bad for us. Vaping, it brings on a whole nother level of chemicals directly into the body. So just avoid it. I get for some people got them off smoking, yet it didn't upgrade their health. So I encourage you to, if you are a smoker that asked that, if you were able to get off the smoke and you were able to vape, awesome. That you've proved to yourself you don't need to be a smoker. Now prove to yourself that you don't need to be a vapor. And just move away from that as well. And how do we move away from bad habits? The only way to do it is to move toward a good habit. We have no success in quitting alcohol. We have no success in quitting smoking until we choose to be a non-smoker. So that's a total, no one wants to quit. So think about that paradigm and think about that question. So if you got off smoking, you've proved to yourself, I don't care the reason why, you've proved to yourself you don't need to smoke. Now, if you vape, now you can just prove to yourself that you don't need to vape either.
I think a lot of people are saying or thinking that vaping is going to be this better for their health. And I feel like in 20 years, we're going to have a range of, everyone's like smoking causes lung cancer. Cool. We're going to have like 10 other cancers that vaping causes, or the chemicals in that. It can't be, as you said, let's not compare because both are bad, but I just think people are thinking that vaping is a better option. I just see once more data comes out or people actually are vaping for longer. It's just, I just can't see that having any good outcomes.
Yeah, and we're already seeing them starting to pull it from the marketplace and kind of put up some warnings. So that appreciate the question, and the answer is time to move away from both of them. And then what was the question? And the impact on arthritis?
Arthritis, yeah. Is there any impact on arthritis?
Well, other than anytime we bring some toxic into the body, we're increasing the realm of inflammation. And remember, arthritis is an inflammatory issue. So arth means joint, itis means inflammation. So we have inflammation of a joint. And really, arthritis, if we talk about osteoarthritis, is a food or a nutrient issue. So we don't have the right foods or nutrients in the body, and therefore we create more inflammation, and things get congested at the joints, and we start to wear those joints down. So if someone says, I have arthritis, I want you to think that there's two main causes of that. And that is a nutrient issue, which means poor diet. And we got to clean up the diet. And it could also be an alignment issue. And that's where you need to make sure that your postures are good, get a little yoga in your life, maybe go see your chiropractor or something like that.
Awesome. All right. Next one. Are there any vitamins and supplements that shouldn't be taken together? And are there any supplements or vitamins that you can overdose on?
Okay, specifically, I'm going to break that down. If we're talking about minerals and vitamins, so there's really three things, Karen, here. Sometimes we forget there's minerals, there's vitamins, and in that vitamin world, I'm also going to throw all the stuff that may come from like whole foods in terms of like animals, like bovine liver, bovine stomach, and those kind of things. I'm going to throw that in that category. Then there's herbs.
Yeah.
Okay. Herbs will push the body more. We want to know about the medicinal effects and the pros and cons. And not so much occasionally there's a little bit of con, but what they do and don't mix with. Rarely, if the question is some that don't mix well together, rarely are any of them going to create a problem in the body, but they could nullify each other, or you could be just wasting your money for that matter. So if you're taking, I don't even know if I have a good example, because if it's whole food, it's just food. And when we think about it, that's how we got to think. We got to think away from the medical model and mixing and matching medications, where we have to be really, really mindful. There are some scenarios, there are some herbs that would say, man, let's not use this one during this phase or this one during this phase. For example, if you're in the sun all day long, I usually don't recommend high doses of St. John's wort, just certain things like that. But for the most part, vitamins, minerals, and herbs, if they're whole food, no, I'm trying to think clinically. Do I ever watch out for this one? There are certain conditions, but not the vitamins, minerals, and herbs. Certain conditions create us as practitioners to say, well, I'm not going to give you this because of that. I'm not going to give you this because of that condition. But that could be all night long.
Okay. And the second part of this question for the same person is, and in your opinion, what vitamin and minerals are good for chronic fatigue due to a crummy circadian rhythm?
Well, if your circadian rhythm is off, and that needs to be the target here. So this is a great question. First of all, the topic of circadian rhythm, that's basically nature's clock. That is, going to bed with dark and waking up with the sun. So we got to develop that rhythm. In our phones and our computers and everything like that have really thrown us out of the circadian rhythm. But then there's also people who have nighttime jobs, and that can interrupt the circadian rhythm. Food will interrupt that circadian rhythm. So I think the question was,
what vitamin and minerals are good for chronic fatigue due to a crummy circadian rhythm?
Okay, so magnesium, phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. It's a yin mineral. It'll help that whole system that's helping your body, kind of get into that when it kind of like almost what it is now, when it gets a little darker, your body should be shifting right before you produce melatonin. If you have magnesium in your body and you have those minerals available for you, you can shift into getting serotonin and really melatonin being produced in the body. So anything that helps the yin part of this. So I love things that shut your system off. You could use kava before you go into bed. probably the simplest one I would tell you right now is just magnesium, without diving too deep into why you have that chronic fatigue. But if you're not sleeping, you got to figure out how to sleep. That is, the top of the top there. And discipline right there is going to be huge in terms of, even if you're not tired, you've got to put yourself in the position of going into your bedroom and lying down and shutting the lights off. Cool, dark, and quiet is going to be required to reestablish that circadian rhythm. Real quickly on circadian rhythm, if that individual hasn't tried it yet, getting yourself adjusted or getting some acupuncture can really advance that quickly. There are some spots called the Shen spot that we use in acupuncture. Kidney 1, which is on the bottom of your feet. It's not comfortable, at least not when it goes in, but that is a fantastic spot that we use for grounding the body again, which is fantastic. And then if you go to your chiropractor and you get adjusted, the very first vertebrae, called your atlas, is a great way to reset your hypothalamus gland, because the hypothalamus gland is your clock. It's paying attention to your circadian rhythm.
And also, we actually did a whole episode on sleep. So you can go back and listen to all our past episodes on your favorite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or on Spotify. So also for that person, if you want to go back and listen to our sleep episode, you can download it. You can download the podcast and listen. Okay, the next question is, can you go over your sun protection protocol, including the timing and how long you can go out in the sun? I think you shared with us another time you have a sun protection protocol.
Yeah, 'tis the season. So I started mine this weekend. So I use 3 different supplements, and the goal here is this: I'm getting the skin, my body, better at defending against the sun. So that concept again is getting stronger. So the way that we want to do this is, what really protects our skin from the sun is calcium. So we want to take a really highly bioavailable source of calcium, which I use something called calcium lactate. And I'll give you the dosing in just a moment. We take that, and then we're going to take something called Cataplex F, which is really vitamin F. It's a type of essential fatty acid. We take that to the vitamin F will take the calcium out of the blood and push it into the tissues. So you're going to need excess amounts of calcium in the tissue when you go out into the sun. And then we're going to use old school full complex vitamin C that has things like the bioflavonoids, has vitamin P, vitamin J, the things that help the connective tissue and even the collagen bind. So there's 3 products there. So there's Cataplex C, calcium lactate, and Cataplex F. All 3 of them, 5, about an hour before you go out in the sun, and it lasts for about an hour at a time. That's what I find is a good healthy dose. So listen, you can't just go sit out and sunbathe. But I'll go outside and do yard work, wash the cars or whatever in the sun, and it's just enough for me to take in some sun, get a nice nice healthy tan, and not fry. And that's you never let yourself burn. If you're going to be out in the sun more than an hour, most likely, no matter who you are, you probably need to cover up, put a hat on, a long sleeve shirt or something. But I've done this for years. I'm a light skinned person, but getting tan is very healthy for us. It keeps the activation of vitamin D going on. And listen, there's anything you put on your body, like sunscreen oil, no matter what, it's always interesting, Karen, because we're saying, well, I was out in the sun for my health. I had to lather up. But for your health, my goodness, you are literally in the heat putting something on the largest, eliminative organ in your body, and it's driving those chemicals directly to your liver. And that's why so many people are exhausted after a day at the beach. A little sun poisoning, and you've driven all those chemicals deep into the liver, and the liver's going, you got to be kidding me. So, let's cover up a little bit. That would be, listen, I live at the beach. We love it. But I'm also really in tune to, an hour here, an hour there. I'll go back. It's not uncommon that I'll do that dosing 3 times in one day, because I'll still be out in the yard and still doing things with the dogs.
Yeah, love it. Awesome. All right. Still got a few more questions. Our next question is, I read on Bulletproof that steaming and draining the kale for your smoothies reduces oxalates. And adding calcium and magnesium supplements to the shake is also good for reducing oxalates. What magnesium and calcium would you recommend?
All right. There's a lot in that question. So what this question is derived by is that someone has heard that oxalates from things like oxalates from things like spinach. Was it kale? I think they said spinach.
Kale. Yeah.
Oxalates are bad for us.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of people, if you've never heard that before, don't even listen. just ignore that for a moment. Oxalates are something that can build up in the body. And often if you get too much of a buildup, they can build up and create something like a kidney stone. And we measure oxalates, Karen. When we do an organic acid test, which is a P test, one of the things we do to see how your body is eliminating, getting rid of things, we measure oxalates. Unfortunately, somewhere in the health world, and I blame the health world on this. I'm blaming the medical world. I'm blaming the health world on this. Somehow we have demonized spinach as having too many oxalates. So when I first heard of this 5 or 6 years ago, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm dead. Like I'm doomed, because I was eating a bucket of spinach like every other day. And so, and I was measuring my oxalates and I never had any issues with it. So I did a deeper dive on the study in it. And the reality is, and I'll get back to answering that question in a moment, but I want to answer this for people who think you can't eat too much. Like if you eat too much spinach, you're going to get oxalates, or even celery juice for that matter. And the answer is no, you can't. And if someone was going to argue with me, and listen, I know there's some other health practitioners, in my opinion, what they're doing is regurgitating this information. But when we go to things like PubMed.org or anywhere out there and say, how much spinach is much? How much kale? How much do you have to consume in order to create a downregulation of the liver, then the kidney, that causes a stone? And there's nothing out there that tells us that there's too much oxalates in spinach. So with a deeper dive, I want to give an explanation to that. And so I think they said, could they use magnesium and calcium to put it back in after you drained out the juice of the kale and spinach? Man, way too much work. We should not be working that hard.
Yeah.
And listen, I know Bulletproof. I know Dave Asprey, and he does some amazing things, but I'm probably not in the not in the same page right now with him, with that conversation, if that was his conversation. The oxalates, they come from pulling calcium too much. We get kidney stones we pull calcium out of the bone. It circulates through the body. The liver can't handle it, and it lands in the kidney, and we create kidney stones. And why is that happening? We're having too much phosphorus in the body, and that will leach. Phosphorus can leach calcium out of the bone. But really, this is a liver issue. That's what this really boils down to. The liver probably has a little bit of fatty acid for people. Fatty liver. It's slowing down. It can't handle things. And therefore it lets things go. And the things that go down into the liver and they build up in the kidney. And that's how we get kidney stones. That means it's upstream. We had things, the kidney is just supposed to be a filter. Stones are not supposed to get there. Calcium is not supposed to build up in there. So the phosphorus, where did that come from? And this, it comes from milk, it comes from meat, it comes from dairy. So again, and I'm not blaming there, but it is too much phosphorus, pulls calcium out of the bone. That bone then gets lodged, that calcium gets lodged in the kidneys. That's our issue. I'm going to go as far as saying, and I know this is going to be like flipping everyone upside down who have this oxalate issue with spinach. I'm going to say, man, I'm going to tell you, get rid of it with using cruciferous vegetables. Yeah. Brussels sprouts, broccoli, kale, whatever, Brussels sprouts or whatever else I didn't mention there. Spinach, high fiber, to pull all of the other stuff out and clean out the liver so the liver can do a better job. So I know, again, a kind of long explanation, but I don't like the idea that we are crucifying things like spinach and kale because they've been tagged with high oxalates. If you've never heard about this conversation, just let it blow right by you.
And I mean, we were talking earlier, if we're starting to get to the point where we're worrying about spinach and kale, like we better have everything else super clean first. If we're getting to the point where, our kale is not is causing this? Like, are we also not eating gluten? Are we also not eating sugar? Like, let's, in terms of, hey, we're all busy. Like you said, that smoothie sounds really difficult. Let's start with the things that will have the biggest impact. Cool. Taking out gluten here, getting rid of dairy, getting rid of sugar, going organic. Those are all things that can be done before we start looking at, do we have too many oxalates in our kale?
Yeah. And I think, and just exactly what you said, you're right there. We so many other things we could be looking at, even if there's a history of kidney stones. That's not where those oxalates are coming from. That's a calcium buildup that's taking place from other places. So I would, say I agree with you 100%. Keep cleaning the body out, keep getting the liver stronger and stronger, keep getting those kidneys to filter.
Okay, we're almost out of time. You guys are amazing. You have lots of questions for us. So should we do 2 more and then our last one?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. Have you got any thoughts about, so a lot more people seem to be getting Parkinson's disease recently. Do you have any ideas on how to prevent it?
Yeah. So a couple things. So Parkinson's tough. We're going to see more and more of it. I think from 2005 to where we are now, we've doubled or tripled. So we went from like 5 or 10 million people to a lot more millions of people. And there's a couple of reasons for it. So typically, if like your textbook, you would read that, Parkinson's really, so people understand what Parkinson's is. It's a degeneration of the central nervous system. And specifically, it downregulates your ability to make and use dopamine. And we always think about dopamine in terms of like our emotions and stuff like that. But dopamine starts movement and stops movement. So for me to move my hand like this is dopamine and starting and stopping. So what we start to see with Parkinson's, the symptoms, we see the tremors, the uncontrollable tremors. We see the posture flex forward a little bit. So we start to lose some faculties of just our physical bodies, which is a bummer to watch. But there's 3 things, Karen, that I think right on here. If I had a little more time to answer this question, I'd probably dive a little deeper, but I'll tell you what, right away, 3 things come to mind. 1, pesticides. Listen, when you guys hear about GMOs, you hear me every week say non-GMO, non-GMO, non-GMO. It is getting in the brain, it's creating scarring, it's clustering up things in the brain, and it is impacting our brain negative. We didn't have that much Parkinson's before. 15 years ago, we started using GMOs in our country, and we're seeing Parkinson's go through the roof. That's number 1. There is some connections to head trauma. It's not the biggest one, I think, here, but that would be more, quite frankly, in the medical model. They'll say, well, there's head trauma here. There's some scarring in the tissue. There's tissue being broken down. There's certain parts of the brain. We're getting that scar tissue inhibiting the dopamine effect. But the third is type 2 diabetes. There's a definite link here. So really, what does that mean to us? We're talking about diet. We're talking about sugar. We're talking about carbohydrates. And we really, 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 really want to do everything that we possibly can to get those out, because things like Parkinson's, we're really, and the lead to things like dementia, we're really kind of calling them type 3 diabetes. That these are inflammatory issues of the brain. There are things, what do we do? Super high turmeric, super high, fish oils are fantastic. Get the carbohydrates out. If someone came in today and they have pre-Parkinson's, and I see it all the time, they immediately are going on a ketogenic diet. I want them to be burning ketones, so we start to clear their brain out. There's something else called, I forget the name of it, Karen. It's like seropatase. It's an enzyme. That enzyme, you would take it on an empty stomach. You literally can buy it on Amazon if they literally have Parkinson's. You can take this enzyme. It'll help break things down. You want to take it on an empty stomach. You take like 250,000 IUs twice a day. I don't have that product as in my clinic, but that's something they could do, and it helps to kind of ease up or eat up that scar tissue that's inhibiting the dopamine. So those 3 things really, without going too deep here, but number 1, I'm going to call it type 2 diabetes. Anything that has to do with blood sugar and has to do with carbohydrates and sugar, we got to fix that right away. And then what else did I say? The pesticides and head trauma. Yeah. So the challenge with the pesticides, they're innocent. We don't even know that's happening. You go to this grocery store, you get an apple and it's loaded with chemicals and you don't even know it. And that's where I say we've got to get ourselves just habitually trained. We are organic, non-GMO, and that is our standards.
Yeah. Love it. All right. Well, last question before our last question. What are your 2 to 4 vitamins and or supplements that you suggest for everybody as a general overall maintenance for your health?
I love this question. Yeah, because I definitely have that. So cod liver oil, turmeric. So we're doing cod liver oil, fatty acids for the brain, turmeric, inflammation, get it out of the body. I love something like right now, I love an herb that can help us just make feel better. So ashwagandha is fantastic. And then an overall multivitamin, Catalin. Those right there, if someone's doing that, they come in, they like, I literally had that today. Someone, a lot of time my peeps will come in and be like, hey, can you review this for me? And I go through them. What am I looking for? I'm looking for fatty acid, something to downregulate inflammation. I'm looking for a mineral vitamin product. And then whatever is going to impact our hormones in a way that keeps us balanced. So we could use something called Simplex MRF, but right now I've been using a lot of ashwagandha with my peeps and it's like hitting a home run.
Love it. Awesome. Well, I think that's a good one to end on here. Thank you so much, guys, again. So we'll just do our last question, though, which we didn't talk about again. But what, from all this awesome info, is going to be one action that our listeners are going to take today to move them towards their goal of becoming superhuman?
One action. Repeat the words, I love me.
Oh,
all the time.
Use a bit of that.
I love me, and therefore this is why I'm doing this. I love me, and this is why I'm doing this. I love me, and this is why I'm doing this. And I think we forget, we were kind of like alluding to it. Sometimes we don't give the body enough credit and we don't give ourselves enough chance. And sometimes the answer is why are we doing all these things is because we love ourselves, and it's okay. But we rarely ever get that opportunity to just like have that moment, say, man, I love me, and it's good. And that's why I'm going to do this. It's not even hard. I'm just going to do it.
Perfect. Such a good one to end on. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for all your questions again and for jumping on with us live. As I said, if you want to watch any of the past episodes, you can go and check us out on any of those podcast platforms. Otherwise, we'll see you same place, same time next week.
Yes. And again, everyone, thank you for joining us again. So those guys on Facebook, awesome. Good to have you. If you guys are watching recording, love having you guys. Keep watching. Of course, here on Zoom, love you. And of course, we're going to continue to take deliberate action for our minds, our body, overall wellness, and y'all be awesome.